One thing, some people who go solar, who are off-grid, they run their whole house off of a 12-volt system, DC. Rumor says, speculation says, that 12 volts is more efficient than 120 volts. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes that's not the case. Some of my house is 12 volts. Most of it is 120 volts AC, 110 volts AC. So I'm about to show and explain the good side of 12 volts DC and the bad side of 12 volts DC. Also, I'm going to show the good side of 110, 120 volts AC and the bad side of that as well. It is not always more efficient to have a 12 volt system to run the whole house off of battery, to be off the inverter. Sometimes the inverter uses less power than a 12 volt DC system does. Here's why. This motion detector is running off the inverter. It's AC powered, 110, 120 volts AC. When on standby, it uses maybe 1/10 of an amp, if even that. These light bulbs are 2 LED light bulbs. When running, they're burning 1/10 of an amp. So to convert that 1/10 of an amp, the inverter's taking out 1 amp out of the batteries while the light bulbs are running. So times it by 2 amps are coming out of the batteries for just a few seconds when these lights are running. This motion detector is 12 volts. When running, it burns about 9/10 of an amp. About the same as those LED light bulbs when these lights are running. By times by 2, it's 1.8 amps coming out of the inverter, or almost 2/10 of an amp to run both of these light bulbs. So convert it over to AC from DC, it's right under 2 amps. It's the same as this 12 volt DC light when it's running. These two lights are 12 volt DC. They're 9/10 of an amp each. Times 2 is 1.8 amps coming out of the batteries just to run these 12 volt bulbs. This light is running off the inverter. 120 volts, 110 volts AC. When it's running, it's right under 2/10 of an amp. It's like 0.16 of an amp. So 1.6 amps is coming out of the batteries just to run this one light. About the same amount what's coming out of the batteries just to run these 12 volt lights. I have two yard lights, identical, this one and number 2. They both run at the same time. They're both set on a timer. When they're burning, they're using under 1/10 of an amp. It's like maybe under 2 amps, under 2/10 of an amp. So under 2 amps is coming out of the batteries just to run both of these lights that are running off of AC. So these two lights, this one and this one, they're both using up the same amount of power as out of these two 12 volt LED lights. The same amount of power these are using up out of the batteries. So these two LED light bulbs, 12 volts, use up just the same amount of power as this light does, as well as these two lights. So in this case, the 12 volt system is taking out the same amount of power as the inverter does to run these certain lights. Next, I'm going to show the difference between a 12 volt refrigerator, a regular refrigerator and a miniature refrigerator, 110 volts. This is a 12 volt mini refrigerator, 12 volt DC. While running, it only uses up 6 amps of power an hour from the battery bank. The bad thing about these is they stay running 24 hours a day, non-stop. This is a regular household refrigerator, full size, 110 volts, 120 volts AC. When they're running, they're only burning 1 amp of power while they're running. So it'd be converted over with the power inverter. While it's running, 10 amps are being sucked out of the battery bank or the batteries. The good thing about these refrigerators is they'll run 20 minutes out of the hour. So 20 minutes out of the hour, 10 divided by 3, it's about 3.5 amps an hour, less than the miniature 12 volt refrigerator burns. This mini fridge is 110, 120 volts AC. When it's running, it's using about 1.5 to 2.0 amps an hour while it's running, more than the regular full-size refrigerator does. So reality is, it's not better to get off the inverter. Sometimes it's best to stay on the inverter.